Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, folks. My screen name is Covert Muffin, and we are back here with the Ori and the Will of the Wisps MQO, standing for the Main Quest Order Tournament, which is happening here this wonderful year 2023, and we are still within the prelims, so we are going to be featuring off a free-for-all match, but for the order of sanity of the casters today, we are going to be featuring off two incredible speedrunners of this category, Ryan versus Zuzek. And that being said, I would not be able to cast this alone, so joined with me for this one is going to be none other than my good friend Zemsis. Zem, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great, Muffin. Yeah, it's been a month since Ori was 3. We had one great race yesterday, but honestly, one race just isn't enough. So glad there's more restreamed racing happening today. With, as you mentioned, Ryan versus Zuzek. Qualifiers are slowly coming towards the end. So for those who still wish to join the bracket stage that is coming up soon and haven't gotten in all their matches, I suggest hopping into maybe this. We still have a minute before we go, if a last minute entry or one of the races in the next days. But yeah, Muffin, as you mentioned, Ryan versus Zuzek, that's a pretty high level matchup, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, they've both already done 3 out of their 5 potential qualifying matches that they can do for the times that they want to benchmark. And this is all just for seeding. All you have to do to qualify for brackets is in order to get into at least 3 prelim races. And their times are benchmarking very close, like literally minutes apart. And not only that, they are within minutes of like world record, basically, when they're running. These are definitely 2 of the most skilled runners that we've seen so far with the times they've been putting up. And speaking of which, we also do have a total of 6 people out of the 13 people potentially moving on to bracket stage competing in this one. So it's going to be fun, not just to see runners, but to see how the races go overall. But that being said, we are underway. We're going to see Ryan, who is going to be featured in the top left of your screen, Zuzek in the top right, and down below, your 2 casters, Zemsis, and my name is Disguised Donut today.
Alright, yeah, I'm hungry anyway, so muffin, donut, I can deal with both of these. As you might see already, those timers aren't quite synced up. This tournament is run without loads, so if our runners have different loads, the timers are gonna look a little bit different, but don't you worry, we're gonna get you your timings at the important milestones of the run. But yeah, starting in Rainy Marsh as usual for Will of the Wisp speedruns, grabbing some torch, doing some of the early game areas. Anything particular you want to see this early in the run, Muffin?
Yeah, I mean, this torch tech is already really fascinating to look at. So especially Ryan on the left, they're going to be coming up to a pretty intense skip. I mean, like Zuzek also on the right, where they're going to be doing 2 sequences of skips by using these torch hovers. So every single time they're in their air and they'll be up attacking. As we see, Zuzek on the right is going to be the first to try this. Nice wall jump there. Very, very nice. They are definitely getting that. That's a really precise jump, but it's not over yet as we see Ryan on the left also going for this. But Zuzek on the right with one of the hardest tricks gets it first try. Getting up to that keystone is incredibly difficult. So with the torch, we can't actually hold on to that blue moss. But Ryan on the left, are they going to be able to match their opponent pace for pace?
Oh, not quite on the first, not quite on the second. Yeah, these torch hovers can be a bit mean, and as you can see, you're working on some tight geometry, but gets it now too, and can now also make his way to the right to our first objective in this main quest order. Actually, speaking with talk, after getting the keystone required, also we are being very sure we're skipping that small water pool because the torch is pretty useful for now, as we've seen, which will change pretty soon because entering the full howl fight with a torch would lead to a bit of a problem.
Yeah, indeed. If they actually carry the torch up into this cutscene, it actually acts as a soft lock. So both of our runners just taking a quick little bath, they are going to be able to remove that torch, head into the doggo escape, and then they're going to pet the dog with the second torch that they are going to be picking up. And just, oh man, all this tech is just already so impressive to see, right? Doing a horizontal torch swing as they enter the water ends up stopping you from falling deeper into the water, stopping you from having to swim, so you can just jump out immediately. Because going through the air, faster than swimming, right? And so Just very nice so far, as Zuzek is going to be the first entering the fight. Really nice pattern, nice attacks. They are going to get a very fast kill on the boss, and we are going to see if Ryan on the left is also going to be able to match pace.
Yeah, focus on the left for that first mini-boss fight, and also those nice upswings just chaining so much damage, the little spacing front flip, and yeah, very nice. Now going for quick to menus. As mentioned, we're doing this loadless. That means we're gonna see a few more quick to menus than you might see in an RTA run, seeing how the loading part actually doesn't count towards your timer. But now with this done, we can actually get our first real skill here, and now we replaced our trusty torch with a nice little lightsaber.
Yeah, so the sword is going to be one of the most potent pieces of attack, especially for runners of this caliber. It's going to really allow, yeah, so on the right, Zuzek going for a sequence break. Oh, they don't quite get it. Just trying to maintain their hovering within the air with some sword slashes. And so just like that, like we already have a runner exchange, which I imagine is going to happen a lot in this early game. There's a lot of incredibly difficult skips, but is Zuzek going to go for it a second time? Yeah, they are. Okay, so they pogo off of that branch there, and they are able to sneak through. And so run parity right here between our runners. But we see that Ryan's timer is a little bit ahead. As Zemsis mentioned, we're going to see desync on the timers. That just can't be helped simply because we are running with loadless instead of real-time attack. But that is totally okay. We will be sure to update you as casters as to who is going to be currently ahead, which we see Ryan is going to be in the lead currently.
Yep, indeed. And for now, we have our sword, and while we cannot quite do these gigantic floats you can already see our runners use the upswing as an airstall, use the down pogo to gain more downwards momentum, or in this case, jump off the enemy. And now, already at our next skill, the Ori 2 early game, making sure we get all our power from the first game back. And now we have double jump, and just look at that sword movement. You can see there is some synergy here.
Yeah, indeed. So this was actually a type of tech that was discovered by a runner whose screen name is Hetfield, which is an absolutely incredible nominal optimizer in whatever speed game they ever pick up. And so basically, if you sword slash double jump and then sword slash at, like before short duration ends, it'll actually cause your momentum to get stored. And so you actually continue to float upwards just a tiny bit. And so there's so many little bits of precision platforming just all over the place that we can use these double jump sword hovers. Also to note, after you double jump, it actually cancels out your swing combination, so it reverts back to the first swing. But here, we are going to be coming up to the next major sequence break. Zuzek just absolutely textbook, getting that so fast. That is one of the hardest sequence breaks in this entire run, and Zuzek just putting on a clinic.
I don't know what you're talking about. That looked perfectly reasonable. I'm sure these walls were gigantic and there was so much space there. Oh my god, and Ryan also getting that on the first try. Yeah, that was certainly a lot better grasp of the geometry of this game than most people have. Just getting up here immediately, collecting some resources on the way, and now we can exit Howl's Den and go on with our adventure.
Man, I can't believe we get to watch these runners for the next, 50-something minutes. This is just going to be such a treat. And the more skills that we get, the more tech we are going to be utilized through the speedrun. Like here, Zuzek is going to be the first graphically to be able to reach the regenerate tree after also getting Reckless as a shard, which is going to get us some additional damage by 15%, causing us to also take 15% increased damage. But regen is a really funny skill because it's not required for the speed run, right? It's not required for the normal playthrough, but it is just it's so painful if you don't use it. But not only that is after we get dash, regen is going to have some really nice pairings with some really precise tricks all over the place to get us some nice horizontal zoomies. And so interesting route divergence here. Oh no, Zuzek, right, is just ahead graphically, yeah. So Zuzek is going to be the first to get resilience, which is going to give us some damage reduction, which is going to be very, very nice. But yeah, just all over the place, using those double jump cancels that we see from Zuzek and Ryan just all over the place to build that little bit of extra height little bit of extra distance. But eyes on the right. Zuzek doing a really intense jump chain. Nicely done, gets the climb, and they are going to be able to jump over this Shriek cutscene in order to make it to the shop and pick up Sentry's M.
Yeah, and look at that XP management, or rather money management, going exactly to 0 here on the Sentry buy. And there we go, Sentry and the upswing catapults us in the air, going into the bow area. Meanwhile, on the left, Ryan also working his way up the tree. Now gets to the little lip of the wall, jumps over the trigger, and can now also get his Sentry.
Yeah, and so something you're going to notice very slightly as well is that there's these little sort of refundable resources, right? So if you've never seen like Ori or Ori and the Will of the Wisps, in the bottom center of the game screen, you'll notice those green circles, that's the health. The blue circles, that's the energy. So every time we cast Sentry, it costs 1 full energy. However, in order to refurbish and get some additional energy, we can do things such as break those small little blue energy crystals. We can activate a skill tree in order to get the energy back, as Zuzek is going to be picking up bow here, which is going to be really, really potent for MQO. But you'll notice that the runners are going to be expanding their maximum energy by grabbing those energy cell fragments, as well as like doing things like breaking those refundable resources. So when they do that, you'll see them sword slash and then double jump immediately out of that sword slash to start moving over a little bit quicker. Yeah, and Zuzek just having a little bit of movement struggle there, but no problem. As we see, both of our runners are now going to be collecting bow, and they are going to be heading up to grab these eye stones and then heading over to the right.
Yeah, and those crypto menus are really adding up. Ryan actually, according to the timer, getting bow about, 9 seconds faster here, if I saw this correctly. With the crypto menus, it's gonna be a bit decent, but we'll get you updated. And now, as you mentioned, into Quolox Holo, shooting the crystal, getting a nice full refill here, some extra health. Health and energy is actually incredibly important. We already know energy is very, very much used for all the movement we have, but also this run does not get to skip bosses, so combat also plays quite a big of a role during the run.
Indeed. Okay, so we just saw Zuzek do a really big blind movement there through the poison water. And so this is going to save a good number of seconds as it allows us to skip having to do a lever puzzle, which can be very, very long because it takes a while to get to said lever. And so we see Ryan on the left setting up for it, taking a damage, then jumping and regenning on the same frame in order to be able to get up, take the damage boost from the spikes to delay the damage from the poison water, getting that checkpoint, and then continue to swim. Oh, doesn't quite get it. That's okay. The checkpoint is in the same spot so that they just have to continue to try through and make this poison swim. It is very, very tight. So Zuzek with a little bit of a cleaner poison swim, but still Ryan getting it very quickly. But Odo takes a death, but that's okay. Ori and the Will of the Wisps has a very, very nice checkpoint system.
Yeah, those checkpoints, once it means we get a lot of autosaves, so most deaths, emphasis on most, won't take too much of a time cost, but also they do refill some of the resources up to a certain maximum. So whenever you take a death, maybe you can get an extra sentry in afterwards to make up some fractions of those times or similar. But nice enemy manipulation with that sword there on the right, and now with dash and sword, we have so many different movement options. We can cancel our dashes. We can use regenerate to make the dash go extremely fast. We are picking up the pace here.
Yeah, okay. And so we're going to be seeing the first bits of those dash techs from Zuzek. Very, very nicely done. I believe we call it a wave dash, which is a very sort of common trick that we see in like various video games, but it works slightly different. So if we dash, activate regen, and then switch directions as we're bordering a wall with a little bit of space in between Ori and it, then in very specific spots, it is conducive to sort of the geometry on the walls. We can build a lot of speed. But man, beautiful blind swim from Zuzek. That is definitely the harder swim on the way back, and just getting that so incredibly fast. But Ryan, nice getting that quit to menu. We actually saw Zuzek miss that when they were trying to do that a little bit earlier. So Nice nailing that tech. Zuzek is not going to be going... oh yeah, no, it's illegal in MQO to do the drop shot, right? Because they changed the ruling so that projectiles going through terrain is not allowed. I forgot about that. But yeah, so on the left, Ryan going for the harder poison swim. They did struggle a little bit on the way back in. Nice, gets the first one, but it's not over yet. They're going to actually take a second death on taking the last hit on a spike to once again delay the damage, and they get out first try. Beautiful stuff.
And beautiful ramp there with the, I don't even know how it's called, the region sword dash tag that just catapults you forward, goes off the little bit of geometry in the terrain and flies all the way up. And meanwhile, Zuzek on the right, skipping the hornback trigger with a nice sentry jump and then using one of those wave dashes to just fly all the way over here. And with that, we are yet one more skill tree in getting our iconic bash, and I guess that's it for early skill collecting here.
Yeah, indeed. And so bash is going to be the nominative Ori skill. So if you're familiar with the Metroidvania genre, this is what really sort of caused Ori and the Blind Forest, as well as Ori and the Will of the Wisps, to be pretty iconic games within the genre. So bash allows us to grab onto enemies, projectiles. Whoa, Ryan, that was so close to accidentally starting the Hornbug boss fight there, but they were able to just barely get through. Oh my goodness, that was very close. Oh, giving me a heart attack, and we're only 12 minutes into his run. But yeah, so bash allows us to grab onto enemies, projectiles, lanterns, and then it throws Ori in a single direction. So you'll see here on the right, Ori grabs onto the lantern, the arrow appears, shoves Ori in that direction, shoves the lantern and enemy in the other, and then just allows us to move around. There's a lot of manipulations that we can do with double jump and other forms of tech in order to be able to build additional height and be able to push projectiles and the like around.
Yeah, and one other thing, we are still collecting a lot of money. Money is obviously pretty tightly routed here for our purchases later, but also we got some nice shards there. Our bow is slowly but surely powering up with both Quickshot and Splinter now, and Splinter also means when we have that equipped, we can quite multiply our energy quite a bit whenever we hit one of those crystals. So that's a little nice side effect of getting that. But for now, we have talked to Qualog, a thing we definitely have to do. And now it is time to watch a little Moki help us by opening the way to Blades.
Yeah, so here we're going to be skipping the Hornbug boss fight, but don't worry, we will be coming back and taking that fight. We just want to get geared up a little bit, especially in Glades. There's going to be shops where we can spend all the spirit light we're getting in order to upgrade some shards. But coming into Glades on the right, we're going to see a sequence break from Zuzek, where they are going to dash and jump off the ground the moment they land on it. Nicely done. Getting those 3 sets of jump dashes is going to allow us to be able to skip some dialogue. Saving a good little chunk of time. It's just a number of seconds, but it's still very useful. And then nice wave dash from Zuzek. They're just nailing these all over the place. It's so cool. And then here, talking to the shopkeeper, we're going to purchase Overcharge, which is going to be an incredibly important shard later on in the run. It's going to actually allow us to cut our energy costs in half. So you know that we've been spending 1 full energy every time we want a sentry. Now it's only half an energy, effectively doubling the amount of overall height as well as sort of utility without having to refill energy. So very, very nicely done. Also useful for bow, which is going to be our primary damage source on boss fights. Just Zuzek nailing all of these sentry jumps, which are frame perfect tricks. When you're on the ground, you just have to press the up slash and sentry on the same frame. But if you're in the air, it's actually a 3-frame separation, which is a very odd timing window if you are a speedrunner.
Yeah, you're generally used to same frame presses or even 1 frame differences at some point. But once we get into those odd frame counters, that's where things require a lot of practice here. Ryan also getting up on the second sentry. One thing worth mentioning, Overcharge, sure, that helps you a lot with your energy costs. It also will absolutely murder you whenever you touch an enemy or spike. So that means our runners will have to be on point with their movement, but I'm really not doubting that's exactly what's going to happen here. Now Ryan taking the shortcut through the moss and then very nice extended wave dash all the way over the poison water and then going onto the reel before the cutscene starts to just get that little bit more of height during the cutscene. Very nicely done.
Yeah, and Ryan takes a death, but that's okay. The save is just literally right there, but the enemy is gone, so they just have to do a little trickier jump to be able to get up. But no problem, they are able to get up there easily. And so Ryan's going to be moving on to Wellspring, so is Zuzek. And geez, there's so much to explain. So right after we get into Wellspring, we're actually going to be doing 3 rooms in total, as well as doing the escape. And purchasing the ability to fast travel from anywhere, which is going to be in the shop at the top. So in this first room, there is also going to be a skill location, which is going to be grapple, and we are going to get there in kind of a creative way. Normally, you're supposed to go to the right and just sort of do this circuitous route, like breaking these little sort of infected spores that are going to allow the wheels and stuff to start moving. However, instead, what we can do is we can actually end up just doing a sentry jump here as we see Ryan going on the left. Oh, they missed that midair sentry. Yeah, it literally is a frame perfect timing window, but they get it second try. Very nicely done from Ryan. That was incredibly fast. Just a very nominative play from Ryan, showing off his expertise with just like slowing down and just making sure to be able to go. But you see that we see Zuzek is slowing down, but you can see the syncing timers next to Zuzek's timers. So if you ever see a stream pause, we'll just keep you up to date as casters, but you can just watch for that, where it'll just show syncing timers as Ryan is going to be setting up with a bow trick to be able to try and get control during this cutscene. Doesn't quite get it, that's okay.
Yeah, those are incredibly tight on the positioning. They give you some nice movement during the cutscene, but if you don't get it, you just watch and get your grapple otherwise. So yeah, we now have the option to fling ourselves towards all of these blue surfaces and light bulbs with the grapple ability. Gives us some access to nicer movement, and it is right here on the way. And seeing how we actually need to cleanse the waters, no way around that, seeing how it's main quest order, and one of the objectives is talking to Krolok after cleansing the waters, might as well pick it up while we're here. And now with some nice damage boost here, skipping the cycle of the spinning wheel, and now we're actually for once in a small combat arena, and you can see how much that bow is making quick work of our early game enemies.
Yeah, indeed. So we see Ryan going through the arena, and they are going to be able to get through with the bow. Very nicely done. Making sure to pick up some extra resources because they have to wait for this door to open anyway. We're going to see if Ryan gets this skip. Oh, they're doing a quit to menu strat. I've actually not seen this before. So we're going to see what happens on the left as we see whether or not Zuzek is also going to be doing a similar tech. No, it looks like they're going to be going for a regen dash and then breaking the spore. Oh, no, still getting the dialogue there. That's okay. That's okay.
So I think those quick to menus are actually to attempt to get into the wheel again here. You can see how Ori is stopping just before reaching the interior of the wheel, and yeah, now we can go for the region dash now that it's open. Otherwise, there's the other strat that people sometimes do where they land inside, and you can just retry because the save point is right there, and then go with whatever you are up to. But now we are back into the wheels. Can use grapple as a backup if the sentry jumps lands us in a laser. Very nice. We need to be a bit careful in all these spikes, seeing how we're on 1 HP. But now we are back into the next room opening cutscene, and that will open up the top of the wellspring, which means we can now go up there and actually do our wellspring escape.
All right, so both of the runners taking a very nice second room. Interesting, though, to note is that Zuzek actually got an additional Spirit Light pickup that I don't believe we normally see. And wow, Zuzek on the right, nailing those midair sentries as Ryan tries to meet them pace for pace, but doesn't quite get it. But Ryan getting up there second try, very nicely done. Those are, I cannot stress how difficult and weird those can be to try and just nail that 3-frame timing window when you're in the air like that. But our runners, once again, are just slightly desynced just to give you folks there at home a little bit of a warning. So Ryan is absolutely in the lead here ahead of their opponent as they try and do a cutscene skip. Wow, Ryan gets it. very nicely done. And so Ryan's not going to get their health and energy regen, and Zuzek going out for a quit to menu variant of it as well. And so that was actually a sequence break I originally discovered by accident. And then Sikinar ended up coming up with a much, much more consistent, easier method. But man, Ryan on 1 HP Zem, they cannot make a mistake here as they are coming through this escape, and nor can Zuzek because they are on 2 health. This is just so scary because if they take a death here, they not only have to like restart the entire escape itself, but they also did the glitch to be able to get entry into it. So it's going to be even more painful. But no problem, both of our runners putting on a clinic. They get through first try.
Yeah, I think health is just a suggestion and a resource for these runners. They completely confidently taking the 1 spike damage boost to skip the big wheel, and then they are saying, look, 1 HP, the last HP is the only one that matters, we're just gonna get through, and with that it is time to be soggy, and then we have our clean water.
Yeah, shoutouts to all you soggy people out there. I love that meme. So that's like just a little meme since like day one of the community, the so soggy. And so we were playing on normal, so water actually deals a little bit more damage, but like the any percent of run like week 1 was run on easy, and so that allowed people to like do a poison swim to get access to the right side of the map, which is like the very, very end game portions. And so underhandedly we called it so soggy skip because you skipped cleaning the water. But yeah, so here both of our runners are taking the optimal route. They're going to be coming over here to Luma Pools, and even though we actually haven't talked to Qualuck after cleaning the water, this is allowed for the run itself to get water dash and then get the waypoint before the Qualuck fight. And this is because the flag itself that we have to like not activate is the flag at the Qualuck fight itself. So as long as we just go grab the second waypoint in Luma Pools and get water dash, and then we just go out and head to the right, then this is not considered against the rules for main quest order, which main quest order is just basically, as you can think of it, as like all bosses and all escapes, except we have to do things in a specific order. And this was all just sort of constructed as a mid-range category. That would be about an hour and change. Because we didn't want to get launched too early, because you can get like 10, 15 minutes earlier outside of MQO. However, there's just so much fun tech in the late game that runners wanted to keep in.
Yeah, launch will just completely take over the game once we have it. So nice to have some of this early game, and you could see like those normally you are supposed to need a glide to get in here, kind of forcing you into the main quest order, but with the skill our runners have, those mid-air sentries, those wave dashes, glide also is not very much more than a suggestion. So now we are in Luma Pools, kind of glitching out a bit of a puzzle with some deaths, some reloads. We don't need the intended race here, and now can lure this what even is that enemy? The exploding torpedo guy? And go in front of our fight room and be very sad as our door is closed.
Okay, and so Ryan is going through, and they are going to be checking the arena, and the door is closed, so they're going to quit the menu and try and do this. This is all because of a sequence break that we did earlier in the area itself, where we take an intentional death in order to be able to sequence break a portion of it. And oh no, the door being closed is such a big time loss for Ryan itself as they try and alleviate this situation. So on the right, we're going to see if Zuzek is arena door going to be open or closed as they go through this puzzle manually. Wow. Okay, so Zuzek is not doing the sequence break. So doing this and not taking a death while they're coming through Luma Pools means that they are going to be able to get through there with the door being open guaranteed, I believe. So this actually is going to be a nice time save as Ryan is able to get past through their arena, but so many quit to menus they had to do, so losing a good number of seconds from that.
Yeah, and let's look on the right. Indeed, as you mentioned, the door is open. That's a lot of seconds saved here. So our runners now a lot closer than before, making up some of those about 40 seconds that they were apart after the Wellspring escape. And yeah, now do not start the Quallock fight. That would be pretty bad to now murder our frog friend, seeing how we have some steps left in the main quest order in between. But as you mentioned, we can just go here and get our water dash, do some keystone puzzles, get the skill in the area, and then leave and come back to finish it later.
Yeah, and so Zuzek taking a little bit of a depth there because they had a frame rate drop, and so the height that you actually build off of sentry jumps is dependent on the frame rate you're able to clock in the game. So if your computer just drops some frames, then sometimes you can get lower sentry jumps, which can be unfortunate when you have runners who optimize the game to this degree. But both well done from our runners. They are going to be grabbing the water dash, as Zuzek, I imagine, is also going to grab this keystone. Indeed, they are. And so we're going to be using this in Silent Woods a little bit later on to skip one of the slower keystones, or maybe a little bit later into the run, even further beyond that. But both of our runners, now that they have water dash, they're going to grab this waypoint. And instead of going over to the Quallock fight, they are required to go do some other flag activation in the game before they can go in there itself. And so Ryan and Zuzek are now going to be heading over for the Hornbug fight, which is normally like the second boss you face in the game after the Doggo. However, we are going to be activating it now because we have upgraded the bow a good little bit for being able to deal some additional damage, which is going to do two things. One, decreases the amount of time the fight takes, which is the important thing. And two, reduces the amount of energy in total that we need to collect for the boss fight itself. As we see Ryan just barely having enough energy in order to finish out the fight. And woo, Zuzek dashing underneath, good read on the boss, and they're getting a jump pattern on the right. Are they going to be able to close it out? Nice fight from both of our runners.
Yeah, very nice indeed, dropping a bunch of resources at the end there. And now with the Hornbug fight done, it is indeed time to go over to our frog friend, get that trigger out of the way. Nice little dash there, right into the cutscene, into the skip cutscene button itself. And with that being done, you mentioned we wanted to stay away from the right side of the map a little bit longer. Well, looks like about 26 minutes in, there's nothing left keeping us on the left side. We have all our triggers done, and with that, it is time to swim over into the Silent Woods.
Yeah, so we saw a big sequence break from both of our runners, just skipping a dialogue section, and this is just sort of the, oh, hey, look, the water is clean. And we saw Zuzek take an intentional death in order to get a save there, and then we saw Ryan just go immediately into the water with full confidence that they weren't going to take any sort of unintentional death. So very cool to see Zuzek go for some safety, especially after all these mid-air sentries they've been going for and nailing them out of the park. I just absolutely love that play, especially for a tournament, right? Because the goal in a tournament, especially with qualifiers, is to get the lowest average time. Because our runners get 5 chances to get the 3 fastest times that they can put up as a benchmark. As Zuzek, just once again getting these low sentry jumps just simply because of a frame rate. But that's okay. So it's cool to see just sort of the different sort of approach that our runners take when they are approaching these sentry races. And yeah, our runners are doing so many of these dialogue sequence breaks, but this is a big one. Ryan on the left gets it second try. Very nicely done. Zuzek going for it again. Precise distance from the wall. Gets the turnaround sentry jump and gets over there incredibly fast from both of our runners. That is an incredibly precise and incredibly different sequence break. It's just, oh man, the caliber of these runners is ridiculous, Zemsis.
Yeah, definitely. I've seen people get infinited on this coup skip here. It might be the next objective, but skipping it for now, cleaning up the area, proceeding and then coming back and getting our coup trigger out of the way later is a lot faster. And that's an incredibly precise jump. And you need to judge whether you got enough height and distance during the ascent, and if you judge wrongly, there's your cutscene. And yeah, now that we actually got our keystones, we can go back. So we did all this difficult skipping just for some faster movement, seeing how we have access to dash and stuff without Q, but not with Q. And yeah, going for that during a tournament, always great to see, especially when it works so well.
Yeah, really amazing play from both of our runners, getting it that quickly. They absolutely saved a good amount of time from that executional elements from both of them. But Ryan just on the left has to be so careful. They're sitting at 1 health, and this explodey dude is going to be floating after them. And if they just give him a little bit of a hug, we're going to see if Ryan just ends up flapping. No, they take the intentional death in order to get through that door a little bit quicker. Nice ghost door, Ryan. As they're going to come through and break that spore, nice slipping through that small hole, and Zuzek not opting to take that ghost door.
You can see how Ryan really knows this area by heart, doing the lure during the door, the keystone collecting part, to then get a ghost door, and then just slipping in between the track during the ascent, not even stopping. Nicely done, Zuzek doing the same. You have to be confident to do that, and our runners are showing it off so well.
Yeah, so I'm wondering here on the right if Zuzek is going to do a swag strat here. I really hope they don't do it. This is like a really old strat, so if they go underneath here on the right, then they're doing swag strat. No, they're going to take the bubble. Okay, good. But you can fit underneath there and be able to reach that bubble. It's just, oh, jeez, I'm so glad people don't go for that anymore. But anyways, so here we're just continuing through this coup section, just nice movement from both of our runners. We're going to watch some cutscenes, have a little bit of sad time, but that's okay. We are here in order to brighten your day as casters. And this is great. I mean, both of our runners are on pretty decent paces so far. They've had a few slip-ups here and there, but I mean, just being like just outside of a minute within both of each of the racers, just so impressive to see in the mid game. And it's not over yet. I mean, there's a lot of Ori to be happened, Zem, and like anything can happen in Ori, as we've seen in tournaments past.
We've seen some stuff in tournaments past, indeed. And when in doubt, Shriek can always throw us a curveball and be the great equalizer all the way at the end of the game. So keep your eyes glued on those racers. But for now, it is still just a tiny bit of Q banning hopping time until we hit the skip cutscene button. Nothing happened in between. We just parked Q and we're gonna get her back later.
Yeah, so I think this is going to be probably my favorite portion. I mean, I love mid-game techs. I love sword tech in general. But also just like coming up after we end up going and grabbing Burrow, we are just going to have basically a quintessential boss rush under our belts where we are going to be just blitzing through all of the boss fights itself. And so we said goodbye for Ku for now, but don't worry, we will... After we get past sad time, we will see Ku at the very end of the run as well. But that being said, yeah, so like the boss rush. So the 3 bosses we have to do especially are going to be Qualuk itself, where he gets and end up getting possessed. And then we are also going to be taking down Mora. And, oh, geez, I'm blanking. Is there a third boss, or am I just going... No, it's an escape. It's Power Reach's escape.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, there we go. Okay, I know the speed game, I swear. So here we're going to see our runners end up opting for Moldwood Depths itself, which is, I think, a good call, because I do think with bow strats, the Qualuk fight can be a little bit tricky. And so every single time we end up taking down a boss, we'll actually end up getting an extra health and extra energy. So more energy, more sentry jumps and bow shots, right? If we have more health, then it's more forgiving on the boss fights itself. But man, Mora still is just probably I feel would be the scariest boss fight for the entire run, especially doing bow strats. It's definitely an easier fight with sword.
Yeah, so one nice thing about the bow is that it gives us just this tiny bit of light. So we have this darkness mechanic where the darkness closes in, and if you let it close in all the way, you just instantly die. However, Bo does refresh our light just a tiny bit, so that allows us to skip some puzzles, skip some intended light sources like slowly auto-scrolling fireflies or breakable ceilings to let light in, which are a giant detour. No, our runners know this area by heart. They do not need any guidance, and they can just fly through it, making their own light wherever they need it.
Yeah, so intermittent bow shots here is going to refresh the light and also set the acceleration of the darkness and closing back down to 0. And that's also a big thing, right? If we had like light burst, which is the light grenade of this game, it doesn't actually slow down that velocity that the bubble is closing in. So bow is just a very convenient skill. And we're going to see Ryan on the left going to be the first one to enter Mora with Zuzek right behind them. But just a quick reminder is that our runners are definitely just over a minute and a half like behind one another. So with Ryan with a definitely clear lead here, just having an excellent mid game. But like here, this fight is going to be one to watch for, because we're going to start with a main phase 1 followed by escape and then a main phase 3. And so here we go. So main phase 1 for Ryan, they're going to start with bow shots, staying very close to the head in order to try and be able to draw out those melee attacks, as well as be able to land all those splinters, doing some sword slashes, getting the first portion of the first phase done with that stun lock on Mora. And Zuzek matching pace for pace, but still missing some bow shots here and there, but pretty good patterns for our runners overall. What we don't want to see is what we just saw on Ryan's screen, where Mora ended up summoning a bunch of spiders. Fortunately, Ryan did take a death there, so I'm not sure if the spiders are going to be despawned or not for that third phase. But Zuzek has to be so careful here, but they do get the stun lock as Ryan is going into the escape.
Yeah, little escape intermittent part here as Mora is crawling behind Ori, and now we're in the second phase here. And as you can see, the arena is pretty clean. Mira Zuzek just flying through, has to wait for the lock to fall just as Ryan did, and can also enter the last phase very soon. But on the left, oh, those were some very hurtful storms. Ryan now on 1 health, cannot afford to take any more damage, but does not care. Some sword slashes. That was an incredibly aggressive pogo, loving it. But now taking the time to refill energy, and now you could see that Splinter really giving us a full refill of a single energy crystal. And now in the darkness phase just has to do some extra shots here on Mora's head, but Zuzek, not needing to take that heal, is actually catching up quite well during the darkness phase. Kill for Ryan on the left, but just bad attack, but can get one bash off, and that's nicely done. First try Mora's on both sides, and with that we are off to the Wellspring.
Incredible fight from both of our runners. I love that additional safety from Ryan. And fortunately, if they had taken to death, then they just would have had to start that third phase over again. So it's not the worst, right? They don't have to do first phase. They don't have to do the escape over again. But just beautiful sort of improvisation, being like, wow, I got stuck on that wall. Mora got 2 hits on me. I'm just going to play the safe. I'm going to heal up, right? Then I'm going to take my time and grab this energy crystal. And I just want to really give an interesting difference between the two sort of routing styles, right? Of course, Ryan had a slightly slower fight because of the additional safety, but Zuzek just only using bow for like the grand majority of the fight. But Ryan showing off that he is comfortable with the double jump sword attack and really busting out that quick flurry of sword slashes with the double jump cancellations. And then working in bow when they know that they were completely safe from those sort of ground AoE attacks that Mora was doing. Just very, very cool to see sort of that style. I definitely want to talk to them about that in the interview after the run.
Yeah,
Bowers.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, we're in Bowers.
That Ria did wake up already, make Bowers sneeze, which opens up the way into Bowers Reach. You can see how these areas kind of all are intended to be locked behind doing coup. This one needed the feather to make Bowers sneeze, and then the other one only opens with glide, and the Luma pools you're supposed to glide into, but our runners do not care because they have sentry. And now one interesting thing here, speaking of sentry has a very interesting property where during the explosion it counts as a fire. source. So we can put a sentry in those ice areas, and then when it explodes, it will trigger the snowball rolling, and we can continue without having a grenade or doing a puzzle that would spit out a fireball or anything like that. And yeah, with that we can now progress into yet another fight room, which will then unlock the access to our escape here in Bowers Reach.
Yeah, indeed. So some other small pieces of tech that we haven't really talked about, which are going to be important, maybe even a little bit later on, but our runners have been using so far, is that whenever you bash off of an enemy, it actually refreshes your dash. Also, if you like bonk your head into a ceiling or a wall, that's also another way that we can get a refresh on some skills. And so utilizing this, we're able to sort of do two things. One is it allows us to stay in air for longer, like just in case we don't want to land in some water or on like a hazard or something like that, as both of our runners just putting on a clinic with this arena here. But it's also going to be useful for when we want to reset skills otherwise. Also, hitting a sword slash on somebody refreshes double jump, refreshes dash. So those are really important things a lot of the times with building some additional speed while we're going horizontally through an area. But really nice sentry jumps, really nice progress, and we're going to see our next sequence break. We're going to see if Ryan actually heals up here. No, okay, they're just going for it. Okay, so Ryan doing an air sentry as well, going to be gliding and then falling in a really precise spot. Let's see if they get it. And they do, first try. And so here's Zuzek on the right, also going for the sequence break. They're going over a giant trigger, skipping a cutscene. Did they go too far? No, they did not. Beautiful entrance to this escape from both of our runners. And they are going to be heading very, very quickly into this escape sequence. Wow, that was impressive.
Yeah, also nicely done wave dashing here, and with that we are in the avalanche escape. Sadly, no matter how fast we go, the avalanche will keep up with it, which means we do need to execute during the entire thing, but our runners are comfortable doing those sentry jumps. Ryan already through, and Zuzek just needs to get under the log and now on the home stretch. Gets a bit of a small wave dash there, but can now also glide into the completion, and with that, that is 2 out of the 3 areas down.
Yeah, okay, and so remember that we already did most of Luma Pools? Well, we have that teleporter and is directly next to the boss fight. So this boss fight is going to be composed of like 2.5 stages-ish. So this first stage is going to be just an escape sequence. It's going to be pretty easy for our runners as they are progressing through. And then the second phase, which is going to be the difficult one, where we have to end up taking down the boss fight. And Ryan on the left is doing some shenanigans here where he's just water dashing. And when the boss fight, I didn't know you could actually do that. That is so nominative of Ryan. That's great. Oh, thank you. And so the second phase is really where it's going to be the difficult portion. The boss just has a lot of health. They take up a lot of space. And there's going to be a lot of like giant attacks. And the boss also can just shift its position really, really quickly. So it can be very, very spooky as it ends up going through with its attacks. And Ryan already taking a little bit of damage here. And so they're probably going to heal right at the start of the boss fight, because the Pollock just kind of yells at you for a little bit, and then you can start damaging it. But that being said, nice escape sequence from Zuzek so far. But yeah, so in the second half, so once we get Qualic down to half health, they actually end up spawning and filling the bottom of the arena with water. And so Ryan preemptively setting up some sentries just to get in some extra DPS, because they're not losing time by not doing bow shots in particular. And very nice pattern, going to be able to just damage Qualic, and they are bringing him down to half health. So they're breaking the energy crystal, switching out Overcharge for Reckless to be able to deal some damage. Zuzek on the right, continuing matching pace for pace. Nice energy crystal manipulation there to be able to grab some additional energy. And they are just laying in the bow shots. But man, Ryan is just putting on a clinic this fight.
Yeah, absolutely incredible DPS uptime. Also, both of our runners getting the crystal just because it's before it's underwater, and they wouldn't get the giant splinter refresh. But with that, we can stay in the air. We can Krolok dipping in for a moment, but we are still fine. Tank shot missing. Falling rocks also missing. Sadly, we're not getting the giant damage bash projectiles, but also on the right, Zuzek taking down Quolok without a hit. Not quite as nice of a pattern as Ryan got, but still very, very quickly done.
Yeah, so I was breathing in there in scariness because the moment you see Qualic going down into the water, you do not want to be falling downwards into that water, because if Zuzek had landed in that water a split second earlier, what would have happened is that Qualic goes into this very long phase where they end up sucking in the water, and you just have to water dash for a bit, and you can't deal damage to the boss during that. But really nicely done from Zuzek, just recognizing that they were totally, completely fine in that phase. But now, after this cutscene, we have grabbed all 4 of those wisps, and in order to complete Captain Wisp, we have to end up just going to one final escape sequence, which is going to be over in the ruins themselves, completing Sire, and that then is going to allow us to go over, grab launch, enter Willow's End, and go into one of the most intense and most fast-paced dungeons in the entire run.
Indeed. And now, this little breathing room here, that is one of those things. Sure, probably our runners would like it to be a little bit less long, but it is still very much needed after doing the intense boss rush, which are also kind of deep portions with the most hurtful deaths should you take one of those. And after that, just take a deep breath, get ready for the late game, and then once the cutscene is over, we can go back to the right side, take that Silent Woods teleporter that we had earlier, and sadly, we are still not allowed to just do whatever. There is a little cutscene there in the way, which would take a bit of time. So you can see Ryan here pogoing off background things, and now Sentry jumping, getting incredible height of those 2 area sentries, and going all the way to the right before touching the ground.
Yeah, so I believe if Ryan was able to just keep going and get far enough away, then they wouldn't have had to watch that tiny little cutscene. But it's like it requires multiple mid-air sentries, which is like frame perfect 3-frame window sword attack. But yeah, Zuzek on the right, walk that. They did get the sword attack onto the bone pile, and they are continuing the chain, and they are able to get that tiny little, like, what is that, 2-3 seconds?
That is just the kind of thing these runners do, right? You do like 4 area sentries, all need to be like at least 70% height or something like that, all to save 2 seconds in the end. We've been seeing that throughout the entire run, over and over and over. And those things add up, and that is why we're here about not even 45 minutes in at the Burrow Tree.
Awesome. Amazing stuff. And so Ryan's going to be the first one to make it over to Burrow, but Zuzek is also going to be coming through. And just a quick reminder that we do see a timer desync, and this is not an error with our restream. This is just simply because this tournament, in order to try and create a more competitive atmosphere, we are using a load remover in order to get loadless times for our runners so that they can benchmark more comparable times. Because in speedrunning, it's not about how good your hardware is, it's about how good the players are. And so both of our runners just putting on an absolute clinic, showing off some amazing stuff. But Ryan, definitely in this matchup, is clearly in the lead.
Indeed, and now that we have Burrow, we can fly through the sand like we flew through the water before, and our goal is to reach the ruins all the way at the edge of the map. Before that, we have very similar puzzles where we are luring these torpedo guys to open up pathways for us. One we already saw. Oh, nice there. Skipping out the need to bash the torpedo by just positioning very carefully close to the wall. Bashing, sure, it doesn't look like it's slow, but you are stopping time for a bit, so every bash is lost time, and those small time saves, small optimizations all over the place are what we're all about. Now Ryan sadly missing the cycle because he dashed into spikes, but can now continue on after regening. Let's see if Zuzek gets good cycles here. Sadly has to take the little helmet enemy for a spin before. Also will take the regen save here, but with this spinning laser, doesn't get enough iframes, will have to take another attempt at that. And seeing how we got hit the spikes, and The respawn, I believe, also gives us one less health than we would usually have. Here, let's see. All right, we're through. Yeah, it's just some movement, but sure doesn't mean we get to take a breather.
Yeah, indeed. And so we're going to see Ryan coming through the temple. We're going to have a bit of story time and story time sanctuary, where we are going to be learning the lore of Ori. And it's going to explain that these leaves turn into trees and stuff. And yeah, we make a wisp and stuff. And so that's pretty much it. And so we're going to see our runners work through in each of these. We'll see if they go for some of the skips here. I believe there might be one or two that we can do in order to get past some of these text portions of the run. But basically, for the most part, we're going to be seeing burrow tech, which allows us to go through those earthy parts and also be able to progress through really, really quickly with wave dashes and the like. So there we go. There's a wave dash into the next one. Nicely done, Ryan. Even though it's like a tiny little bit of distance, it does save that split second from just dashing and holding left, right?
Yeah, my favorite lore skip is still playing the randomizer. A quick advertisement here. But back to our runners actually playing the base game here, MQO, opening up the Sandworm Escape. And now this is a thing that originally was a bit too ridiculous, so they nerfed it on higher difficulties. The Sandworm Escape. We see that burrow, well, turns out if you have a keyboard and you have 4 directions and you have a burrow and you have a giant worm chasing you at pretty high speeds through a lot of sand, that is very difficult. But with the wisps uniting and we getting our big wisp, and I'm sure nothing bad will happen after this. Let's see how our runners will do it.
Yeah, building a little bit of hype here, Zem, like Ryan's been putting up amazing times, right? Their first race was a 1 hour and 1 second time, which is, I believe, the second fastest time besides Scarfeld's 3 sub 1 hour times. And then they got a 1 hour and 1:11 second for Ryan. And then they got a 1 hour and 1 minute time. But this one, they are on quite the pace because at Burrow Tree, they were just about like 5 seconds behind a 59.3x. So like they are definitely on pace. And Ryan did mention to me yesterday that they really did want to close out at least 1 sub hour in quals. And so they still have one more chance after this qual today. And so we're going to see if they can close it out. So definitely keep an eye on Ryan. They are on an amazing pace here in this qualifier.
Yeah, let's go into this burrow escape. And KBM, 4 directions, not omnidirectional movement. But look at those angles, getting past all the sand areas without a hitch, using sentry jumps instead of burrow here to get a lot of height immediately, and then dashing through those burrow bulbs before continuing on. Are we gonna... Alright, no big speed on the bounce pad, but now a quick breather for about 3 entire seconds as the sandworm goes past us, but now it's back into dashing, getting a nice reset there on the down burrow, still on full life, and still I think only bonked once at the start here. Nice pogo to get onto the ground faster, gets the wave dash second try, and just some burrows left until we are through. Nicely done, Ryan.
Wow, incredible stuff from Ryan. Zuzek is now going to be in the waiting section. Let's see if they enter the tail. No, they're going to be getting out of the sand a little bit slower, not opting to go for the same 2 sort of sand entry style that we saw from Ryan at the bottom, but still getting a lot of good grapples. Nice exit there, getting through the platform with a nice dash cancellation with a sword to be able to move a little bit quicker, because sword actually ends up bringing down dash off of cooldown some more to double jump. And nice escape from both of our runners. And wow, look at this. I mean, Ryan's just, just kind of hanging out. We're going fast here by speed running.
Yep, you can see it. Just running as fast as possible. All right, we're allowed to teleport out after finally. And just to give you some context here, Ryan has about 20 seconds of leeway for those last 9 minutes of the run, I think. So yeah, that's the kind of leeway we're talking about here for our late game section. And after we hyped it up so much, it is finally time to go into the endgame area. Weeping Ridge first, get our launch, and then do an incredibly movement-based dungeon as our completion. And nice extended wave dash. Oh, I love that one. We've seen one of those earlier during Lumapul's entry, but just extending wave dashes with sentry jumps always looks so amazing.
I love that one. I busted that one out during the randomizer tournament like so much. It's just definitely one of my favorites. It just looks so cool. So thank you, Ryan, for showing that off.
Zuzek, thank you for nailing it too.
Yes, Zuzek, let's go. Let's go. Man, both of our runners putting on an excellent show, and I'm almost sad to say that we potentially have less than 9 minutes for our runners before they are going to be closing out. So coming through this elevator section, we're just going to have to defeat 4 Gorlaks with the shield ones. We actually just wait for them to yell at us, and then we bash to the other side of the shields, and then shoot them in the back with a bunch of bow shots. And here Zuzek is going to be doing the same thing there, and then Ryan on the left setting up for a wave dash. And they do get it. Okay, that is actually really tightly timed. If he had been a split second a little bit later on that timing there, then it would have failed because the elevator starts tilting down and you don't quite get the angle you need on the terrain anymore. So just really cool showing his game knowledge there, Ryan was. And so we'll see if Zuzek goes for it. It looks like they're not going to. No, they're setting up. And Zuzek also gets it. Very nicely done. Good stuff. And now we have launch.
Yeah, that's a perfectly balanced skill with no problems at all. So now launch does one thing. It launches Ori into any direction you want, basically instantly at incredibly high speeds. And guess what? It wouldn't be Ori and the Will of the Wisps if we didn't have a bunch of tech to go in tandem with it. So first of all, basically everything resets your launch. A sword slash will do it, touching a wall will do it, and so on and so on. To make things worse, we have that launch swap tech. I'm not actually sure if we're gonna see anyone use it. I don't know which patch they are playing on, so can't tell you that. For now, we have to skip one of these boulders and break some of those willow hearts, because everything that's keeping us from entering the final segment of the game are these hearts blocking the exit of the dungeon.
Yeah, so you're going to see some really subtle things here around the hearts in particular. We're going to see the runners actually end up getting a lot of distance away from the heart and then trying to get it down to one final hit. And then they're going to use a bow shot and then try and launch and or dash away from that in order to be able to get a quick save that is near by the heart. If they're able to do this, then they can actually quit the menu and be able to save a little bit of time on every single heart, not having to watch the cutscene. So there we saw Ryan set up, and they ended up getting that one very nicely done. But wow, Zuzek has to be so careful here, only being on 1 health. There's so many difficult things. Yeah, and so he takes the laser. That's okay, he just goes back to the main entrance. So only a few seconds of time loss for Zuzek. But Ryan coming through, they're doing their climb and going for some beautiful resets off of the wall, and they're able to get it. But that was incredibly close.
Yeah, Zuzek sadly getting an incredibly unlucky fireball cycle there, and quick breather now as he is kind of getting a bit stuck on this section. Just imagine the stress after this long of a run. Like, it's a mid-range category, right? 1 hour. And the tech here in the final dungeon truly doesn't get any easier than anything before. Now we also have to deal with all the cycles while also having that aerial momentum and the ability to stall with launch too and line up things even more. And yeah, to make things worse, things hurt a lot. So very nice showing here, getting through the dungeon, and you can see it on Ryan's side. We're looking more at the menu than we're looking at the area to the hearts at this point.
Yeah, indeed. Beautiful just cutscene skips on every single one from Ryan. A nice bash angle there. Getting a nice little wall hits. That's actually pretty deceptive. It's not as easy as it may look. And Ryan just fiddling with their hotkeys a little bit, just slowing down, making sure everything is bound correctly so they don't accidentally press the wrong thing. But Zuzek, on the right, we saw Ryan do this a little bit earlier, setting up for Quidditch. Let's see if they get it. Oh, the shot looks a little bit low, but beautiful adaptation from Zuzek to be able to recover that. That is just so incredibly intense, and they only had a split second to be able to try and recorrect themselves before the shot ended up running into something.
Yeah, and amazing launch timings too. You saw how tight Zuzek was to all of those spikes, and on not only 2 health, everything will kill you on 2 health. So very nice on that Quidditch adjustment and not launching into any spikes, getting every cancel immediately. Very nicely done. But yeah, for now, Burrow hard on the right side as we get a very, very intense and difficult drop fight on the left.
Geez. Yeah, so Zuzek there was just a little bit too far away from the little sand sphere to be able to burrow into it. So they actually ended up dashing horizontally in the spike. But yeah, on the left, there was a boss, and then we just shoved a bunch of bow shots into it, and then it's dead. That's it. Yep. Definitely probably the easiest boss fight in the game.
I mean, pressing bow for 20 seconds is, of course, definitely the hardest things our runners have done in the past minute.
Yeah, so the next couple of hearts on Ryan's side are probably going to be some of my favorite movement-wise. There's going to be a lot of technicality with hitting very specific laser cycles at really specific times. So Ryan is going to only do a single sword slash there in order to be able to match that laser cycle perfectly. But that damage is going to carry through even after he destroys these hearts. So now he has one less sword slash he has to do as he is going to be coming back. Then coming down here, look at that. Lasers perfectly timed to be able to get him through. Then upcoming here, Ryan is going to try and shove himself through a bunch of lasers. Nice, able to carry the iframes there through that laser, but it's not over yet. Oh, Ryan, yeah, is able to get through, but this is the cycle if he can hit this. So here, doing a double jump glide, and he is, no problem. Ryan putting on an absolute clinic in this Willow's End. Incredible play.
Yeah, that was so tight on those glide positions where you just stall. Sure, it's 3 lasers firing at you from all angles, but that's no big deal if you've played this game as much and know every single nook and cranny so well. And look at that, laser cycles even lining up on the way outside, and with that, we are out. And indeed, the door has opened, which means it is time to visit a very angry bird after we, of course, do some more of those gigantic, beautiful jumps.
Man, nicely done from Ryan, skipping the dialogue skip, and here we're coming into the first phase. The first phase for a runner of Ryan's caliber is going to be pretty scripted, trying to stand in specific spots, trying to jump up at really specific times, and then just getting the damage in. Yeah, just beautiful first phase from Ryan. That was absolutely scripted. It's the same nearly every single time with only slight deviation in RNG. But here's going to be the escape sequence, and then the next phase, the third phase, is going to be the one that can count. Definitely the biggest source of RNG for the run itself. And so Ryan going to be coming up, getting through. Nice launch slides there. That is incredibly good tech. Some of the earliest tech that was discovered in the speed run itself after the game came out. And so here we go. Eyes on the right, eyes on the left. Ryan's going to be coming into this phase. Let's see how they do. What patterns do they get, Sam?
Well, we're starting with some sweeps. That's definitely what we want to see, right? Some invincibility, but now we get a laser. That's good damage here on Ryan, using the launch, the sword, everything to keep in the air and keep on with the damage. But now Shriek flying back up. That means we get some damage in between those jumps. Not quite as much as during a laser, but still pretty good. And that doesn't quite reach the next phase, but at least it's a ring attack and not a feather drop. So we're making it through phase 3 without a feather drop, resetting with an intentional death, getting all our energy back, and now there's just some feathers falling, a few swipes, and then we can kill the burp and get our timing. And looking at the timing, I'm still liking this.
Yeah, this is it. If Ryan can absolutely close that out, I imagine they can get that sub 1 hour that they are looking for in this qualifier here. And just kind of far away from the shots, but no, they were going to be going for a sword slash, then a launch. They accidentally take a shot, so they're going to be losing some damage output. Ryan's in Shriek! No, Ryan, get up! Oh, and they have to take another phase. This is going to be so close to them. Time is going to be on the final hit on Shriek, but it's only 2 fly phases there. They're getting the shots in, and they close it out. A 59-24 is going to be that timer. And for Ryan, closing out the sub 1 hour. Let's go, dude. Hell yeah.
There is the goal. Indeed, doesn't matter that you need 2 runs on that last phase streak if you play this cleanly beforehand, and with that Ryan gets the sub hour he wanted and he deserves. But now, eyes on the right, let's see what kind of pattern Zuzek gets, and so far it's pretty matched, both starting with the sweep, and now we're going for a wing drop here, means we get some good damage in, and let's hope, everything is fine to me as long as it's not like 6 sweeps into a feather fall.
Yeah, indeed. Okay, so Zuzek coming through, getting those arrow shots in. Nicely done, taking the intentional damage from there. And ooh, they do get one of the longest. This is like the best pattern to get, but unfortunately, Zuzek got it like at the very end of the boss fight. But doing the same strat here, you're nice. Good game knowledge there, taking the intentional death in order to get some energy back, and then that energy crystal is back. And boom, they're able to break that with a splintered bow in order to increase the amount of energy they actually get from that crystal. If you had broken it with a sword, that wouldn't have gotten him the same amount of energy. It's actually like half if you break it with a sword or something like that. Splinter Bow is just that good of a skill. And so now Zuzek coming into the final phase then.
Alright, opting to go for a launch strat here to skip the first swoops instead for the sentry jump. And now, after we have skipped all of the Shriek swoops, all that's left is to get some good bow shots. Does not hit Shriek and gets the 1 cycle. Nicely done. That's a kill. That's a wrap. GG Zuzek 2.
Wow, awesome stuff from both of our runners. And yeah, it's like a 4.5 minute timing differential, but like we just saw so many incredible things like from both of these runners. And honestly, Zem, right? This is qualifiers. This isn't bracket phase, right? We're not even in brackets yet, and our runners are benchmarking times like this. And honestly, I could see this being a matchup for the grand finals where it'll be a best of 3, right? These runners are just that good, right? And so if they're able to keep benchmarking times like this as they finish out quals and go into brackets, like, man, that would just be so incredible to see. And hey, I wouldn't be shocked if we saw like a reverse result with Zuzek getting the sub 1 hour and Ryan getting a 104. It's just Zuzek just had a bit of struggle with Willow's End, and then Ryan just busted out all those awesome quit to menu strats that Zuzek really didn't take advantage of. So it'll be interesting to see if Zuzek maybe alters their play as they're going to be going into the grand finals, but we'll just have to see and stay tuned to find out.
Yeah, we had to exactly. Let's just fix our runners for the grand finals immediately. Well, we did have a number 1 and number 2 finish here in the entire race too, so that is very, very nice indeed. And well, I'm interested to see, are they happy with this? There is still a slot for a time open, so maybe in those last few qualifiers we can see some extra push, maybe get a second sub hour. Of course, if our runners say, hey, look at those timings, let the others match that first, we can just go with what we have too. Then, as you mentioned, it is best 3 out of maximum 5. You can do as much as you're comfortable with.
Yeah, so in race time, I'm not too terribly surprised here to be sharing this result, but Ryan and Zuzek were the first 2 to finish out of the 6 people racing today, right? Because these may have been the 2 epic runners that we ended up showcasing here on the restream, but we have 4 other awesome speedrunners, wonderful community members who are also racing to benchmark some of those qualifier times in order to be able to qualify for the bracket phase, right? Because basically the way we have it set up is during the qualifier phase up until April 20th, our runners can do 5 attempts that they just let us as tournament organizers know ahead of time that they're going to be taking part. We have scheduled races like this one today, but they can also set up themselves up. And so basically from those potential 5, they have to do at least 3. Then we take their 3 best times out of the up to 5 that they might do, average those together, and then that is going to be what decides how they are going to be seated for the bracket phase itself. And honestly, it's kind of important, right, with like the seeding, because all the way up through the semifinals, all of those are going to be best of 1, right? So winner takes all, and that's what's going to decide who is going to advance. So just even going against somebody who is on this sort of other half of the side of the weighting system, right? Going up against like 10th place, 9th place. It could make all of the difference for a lot of our runners, especially because of single elimination.
Single elimination early stages are always scary, especially when you have a run where one small mistake, let's say during a boss fight, during the last phase, boom, there's a minute gone, right? And if you're in the 1-2 minute range, that can make so much of a difference, and you really wanna hit those best of 3 stages as surely as possible, and then be comfortable to bring your A game in at least 2 of those.
Yeah, indeed, Sam. Really nice point. And that being said, we are now joined by our runners, Ryan, Zuzek, GG's, my friends. That was an incredible showcase.
Thank you.
So I guess first question to Ryan. Sub 1 hour, man. How you feel?
Yeah, it feels really good. The run started off pretty badly, I felt like, but it ended up really good, actually.
Yeah, that was amazing. Like, so, I mean, there's a lot of things I want to ask you and Zuzek about, in particular, but I guess the first one is just looking at that end game, Ryan. Like, that Willow's End was incredible. Is that one of your most practiced segments, or do you just feel naturally comfortable with all the different like Sentry and Sword Slash and launch tech that you apply in your runs?
Lately I have practiced it a bit, but it's actually one of my least practiced ones, because I don't really do individual levels a lot. Lately I have been doing that a bit for Willow, but I mostly just do runs. So Willow is naturally my least practiced split, because I get there the least often.
Awesome stuff. Yeah, that's so fun. That's so fascinating. Speedrunning could just be like that. Question for Zuzek. Just incredible stuff. I mean, I loved a lot of the stuff that I was seeing in your mid game itself, especially like all of your mid-air sentries that you were busting out. Like, it has that 3-frame window with a frame perfect trick. Is that just a form of tech that you've been comfortable with? Or is like mid game sort of something that you've really just sat down with the routing and optimized through yourself?
I think generally I stick to the same routing.
Sure.
It was just today I couldn't get any grounded sentries. They were all giving me low height.
Yeah, I saw.
So thankfully the aerials were working out. I'm just happy about that, at least.
Yeah, that was amazing. And like, I mean, benchmarking an awesome time as well. Like, I believe that is actually going to lower your average overall. So I mean, that was your 5th qual. So how are you feeling overall about your qualifiers, Zuzek?
Yesterday was good. The other ones, I'm not a big fan.
Yeah, the 102.25 was like really awesome to see you benchmark that time. That was really good stuff. So I guess a question for Ryan. Is there a favorite form of tech that you have in MQO overall, or is it really just sort of the combination of tech and as you're going through? Because we saw a lot of awesome stuff from you in particular.
It's definitely either the wave dashes or those regen sentry dashes, like from Skip and stuff. I really like those.
Yeah, that was so cool. Like that like weird ledge one where you like stood on the ledge and just got a lot of additional height from the sentry jump. I don't think I've ever seen that before. That was very cool.
Yeah, it's a pretty recent trick. I really like it.
Cool. All right, so let's talk about boss fights a little bit. Ryan, with your Mora fight, I think that was really fascinating to me, where you're one of like the first bow people that I've seen really bust out a lot of hybrid stuff, especially in that 3rd phase. Is that just something that you've always done, using both sword and bow, like when you see those sort of like ground AoE or like the gas attacks on the ground, or have you just sort of started with bow strats and worked in the hybrid over time?
Yeah, I generally like sword more than bow. So
yeah, me too.
Whenever I see like ground like the fire attack, it's pretty tough to get bow shots in at that moment. So then I try to just at least use sword, because at that moment I often struggle with bow, so then I at least get some damage in.
Cool, good stuff, good stuff. Yeah, Zuzek, so if there was one boss fight in particular that gives you the most fear, is there like a single boss fight, or are they all just, you're just kind of cool, calm, and collected whenever you go into each one?
I'm kind of equally afraid of all of them. I usually get really bad RNG on Shriek. That didn't happen. That didn't happen today. Actually, the boss today went pretty well. I'm happy with the boss fights, actually.
Yeah, it was really incredible stuff. Like, I mean, especially your Mora fight was incredibly impressive to me, Zuzek. That went by so incredibly fast. But yeah, I guess just a final question for both of you. I mean, Ryan, you said
I died at the beginning, right?
You did, yeah, you did. I think once or twice. But then after you were able to get into that second phase, your third phase was just so incredibly fast. That was amazing, in particular. But yeah, I guess a final question for both of you. I mean, Ryan, you have an extra qual you can do. I guess a quick question off of that: do you plan to try and go for your 5th qual to bring down your average? Were you so really happy with that? I believe that is going to be really close to actually a sub 1 hour overall for you.
Yeah, I'm definitely very happy with it. I do want to get another sub 1 hour run at least.
Word.
So that's definitely a thing I want to do. So I'll definitely do the 5th one, but
cool.
We'll see how it goes.
Cool. Okay, and then I guess a question for both of you. We'll start with Zuzek. So now that you are in particular done with quals, Zuzek, and Ryan, you're almost done. Coming into brackets, like, do you have sort of a plan for your strategies, like coming into brackets? Like, are you going to work in certain strategies you don't have in your route yet? Or are you just going to try and play your own game and just really prepare yourself and practice?
I think there's a few little things I need to learn, but especially I need to do something about the Quahog Spirit Light that just keeps happening. I keep not getting that Spirit Light on the cutscene, and it's really bad. Also, hopefully the game doesn't crash again on Luma. Like, I've never seen that happen. It was so weird.
Oh, I saw that, man. Yeah, so Ryan, how about you? How are you feeling going into brackets?
I'll definitely add a couple of things, but I think with the strats that I'm currently using, I'm pretty comfortable with that, so I'll pretty much mostly stick to that.
Cool, awesome, good stuff. Well, I am really excited to see how you folks prepare and also go into the brackets themselves. That being said, we're going to close out. We're all done for today. I do not believe we have another planned qualifier restream on the marathon, but qualifiers are going to be ending on April 20th. So if you are a runner out there who is watching, definitely make sure you get in at least of those 3 qualifiers. They don't need to be pre-scheduled. All you have to do is let one of the tournament staff know that you are going to be doing a qualifier so that they can keep track of them and make sure to benchmark those times before you start that qualifier. But that being said, from the cast today, I am Covert Muffin. I was joined by Zemsis on comms. Thank you, Zem. Zem is currently resting their voice. Major thanks to Apple Tree for the restream, as well as Skull Blocka and Turtle Guy, who are supplying info and stats behind the scenes. And from all of us here from the Will of the Wisp MQO Tournament team, we hope you have a wonderful rest of your evening, and we'll see you next time.